From Chicago, Illinois, I'm Joe Ruggiero, and welcome to the best of American design. Join me as we take you across the country, behind the scenes, and visit America's top designers in their homes. On today's show, we'll meet a young designer whose ideas have saved an inner city neighborhood. And then a Los Angeles designer who lives in a magnificent home in the Hollywood Hills. All coming up today on the best of American design. We at the Best of American Design applaud what's happening with the younger generation of designer today. They are going into the inner city areas and rescuing our architectural jewels. Such is the case in Bucktown, just outside of Chicago. Todd Schwebel, who's both an interior decorator and an antiquarian, has rescued a charming home. Let's meet Todd in his wonderful residence. Todd, I've got to applaud what you've done here. I know there's a lot of activity going on in this community, but much of it is responsible for your, I guess, vision for what this could be. And tell me that it wasn't a lot of work. It was, wasn't it?
Always a lot of work, Joe. We started here with three wonderful trees and designed the garden as a viewing garden to be primarily viewed from the upper floor, which is the living floor of the house, and it's an architectural extension of the house, and we decided to frame out the street side so that we created a little oasis here.
Now, I must compliment you also on, and we hear the children in the distance, it's a great family neighborhood, but I think that you've done a great job in selecting the color combination because it's almost like a little jewel in the sea of this garden.
Oh, thank you. They're historic colors. I primarily work on old houses. We do some new construction with the intent of making it look very traditional and as if it's been part of the neighborhood, part of the site, and so the old historic colors come easily for me.
Now, when was this house built?
The house dates, we would think, about 1875 to 1880.
I also would like to start with some of the architectural elements of the house because they're very charming. The double doors.
The house is an Italianate-style house, and one of the ways to readily distinguish that are the eyebrow arch windows, and that was a style here which was popular in the 1870s. The double doors are, again, a hallmark of late Victorian architecture and are terrific because you can load and unload big pieces of furniture in and out of the house.
Which is a great idea. Later, a villa in the hills high above Hollywood that was once owned by a famous costume designer. And next, we get a look at some of Todd's finer restored antiques. Stay with us. Well, you also have created a wonderful window seat area with a cabinet that has a marvelous marble top. Was that original to the house?
The marble top is actually a top from a Victorian dresser, and that's something that sort of goes along with us from place
That was
to place.
clever use of space, I think.
Terrific for making the rare pie crust.
Oh, I'm sure, which you do every day.
Every morning, Joe.
Now, I also noticed that you've used the William Morris willow pattern.
Right. The willow pattern actually was engineered as a hall paper, and we've used it here in the stair hall. It's a paper that goes everywhere. This house is a very informal, casual style, and it also dates to, I believe, 1878, so it is age appropriate to the house as well, which is one of the reasons why I chose it.
Now, you do a lot of serious restoration.
That's right.
And I think that it takes a really special discipline to do that. But throughout this house are wonderful wooden Venetian blinds. But they seem to be authentic to the period. Is that true?
Well, that is true. Venetian blinds are authentic 19th century window dressing, and they were at the window, and of course, typically, there were additional layers of wonderful muslins and silks and velvets layered on top of the window. But Venetian blinds were used to keep out the light. Fine fabrics, art, all fade, and it's really important to be able to control the light in a room which is well appointed.
Now, as we go upstairs into the master bedroom and I guess master suite, or would you call that a sitting room?
Sitting room, yeah.
I have the feeling that we are in New Orleans or Louisiana.
Well, you certainly see a lot more Americana taste in that part of the world. I'm a specialist in American furniture and American interiors, and in fact, many of the pieces of furniture in the house are things that I grew up with, were family things here from the Midwest.
Well, the bed certainly makes a major, major statement in that room, and you say that's from Kentucky.
Bed's from Kentucky. It's mahogany, four-poster bed, and dates to about 1825.
Now, let's talk about some of the other major pieces in the sitting area, and I would say that that desk is quite spectacular.
Again, it's an American piece. Its origins are Philadelphia, which doesn't mean that it was used in Philadelphia originally. It dates to about 1825, and at that time, furniture was manufactured in the eastern centers and shipped all the way to Illinois, in fact, via the rivers and the canals, and very typically, a piece like that would have been used in Kentucky or southern Illinois.
Todd, you've done a masterful job in the sitting area upstairs because scale, once again, is important when you select seating pieces because of the tiny area. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. Scale is important. I think it's useful in small spaces to use fewer pieces, and in the sitting room there's really a rather large sofa and a large secretary, and the sofa is Baltimore, and that dates again to about 1825. The pair of red chairs are New York City. They're actually our token fancy chairs in the house, and they date to about 1800.
Todd, you have an interesting play with rugs. I mean, they seem to be scattered.
That's right, Joe. Contrary to what you see a lot of today, which is a rug which fills the room from wall to wall, it was more common to use a variety of rugs and to fill a living room or a sitting room with several rugs instead of one large rug. And I've assembled a collection of rugs which complement one another but are all quite different.
Now, as I was able to tour throughout the house, I noticed you have the most interesting, eclectic mix of art.
Thanks, Joe. Again, all American, and in fact, almost exclusively Midwestern. There's a large body of work in the house by an artist by the name of Ellen A. Holmes, and she was a fairly interesting character. She was an early woman artist and exhibited at the Art Institute here in Chicago starting in 1889 and continued until her death in 1933. She was a great watercolorist, which is a particularly difficult medium to work with, and I'm really thrilled to have a large body of her work.
Todd, one of the most charming things when you approach this house is to meander down your perennial border, and sort of harken back to my days when I spent time in England. How long did it take you to establish that garden?
Well, with a lot of help, it's happened in about 2 years. The garden is Russell Page-inspired garden, and for those who aren't familiar with Russell Page, he was a great 20th century landscape artist. architect rather, and he designed outdoor rooms with a lot of green, and our perennial border is our accent of color in this outdoor room, Joe.
Well, Todd, I'd like to say that you get our award for the best of the younger generation and what they're doing to get in here into this inner city area and really work hard to create a very special environment. And thank you for sharing it with us.
Thanks for being here, Joe.
And now it's time for me to have mint juleps, because I've always wanted to have one and they never ever let me take a break like this. So I'm going to do that.
Cheers.
And we'll be right back. Thank you. Next, Villa Vallombrosa, interior designer Annie Kelly's own piece of Venice in Los Angeles, as the best of American design continues.